was in command with technical units, including the STF, in support roles. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is with specific reference, you tell us about your involvement in COP17 summit?
That's right.
Where various units were used in relation to that operation.
Yes.
And you managed to contain the situation without any violence.
That's correct.
Under paragraph 37, you deal with your understanding of the foundation for utilizing a trained police official, which translates across all fields. What do you want to tell us there?
That in general, all police officials, functional police officials, are trained as police officials. So the core and the mandate which we have is based in the Constitution. We do, however, thereafter, once qualified as a police official, go out and follow different career paths which would take you to different environments. You can get detectives, forensics, and obviously the tactical field, which has a public order policing, TRT, NIU, and STF. Now, in essence, all police members still remain police members, functional police members. And it's only the environments where the specific skills are embedded that becomes an enclosed environment to that specific unit or trained personnel. So if I speak on behalf of the Special Task Force here, when it comes to the releasing of hostages in the difficult environments which we do it in, then we would be responsible solely for that. However, in the same operation, there would be other police members involved. Now, it's commonly known in South Africa that only the Special Task Force deals with hostage situations internally. But we have NIU in support. We even have TRT in support in their different roles. And, of course, we even have POPs in support. That's just within the policing environment. Naturally, we've got our emergency services, local government services, which are also inclined to be on a scene. But when the Special Task Force does get to a hostage scene, be it mandated that we are the custodians of that ambit, we are only in charge operationally. The scene is still managed by a senior police officer who would be an overall commander.
Yes. And when it is a POP-dominated environment, what happens there?
Similarly, you'd find that the POP would be in control, would be in command, but there could be other units in support. And the Special Task Force can be deployed, as well as the NIU and TRT, in environments where other skills are lacking on behalf of, say, a POPs unit. They're not in command, but they're in control of their different units. So they submit to the command of the POPs commander, but the POPs commander does not control those specific tactical units. They know their SOPs, standard operating procedures, and they execute their duties accordingly.
All right. And you allude to your experience you had during the operations at Ratanda that you deal with under paragraph 38.
That's correct.
In short, what was your experience there?
Well, we know that Ratanda had what one would term public violence. I think it was public service delivery issues, etc. And it did draw the interests of high levels of government. I was requested to come in to assist to establish a JOC there and put in place some form of a basic strategy for the longer term. Initially, POPs was dealing with the situation according to their standard operating procedures, but they needed something more solid, and I assisted in creating that JOC, putting a proper plan in place that they could thereafter deploy on, which was in essence a sector patrolling plan with certain contingencies built into it, so that the POPs could respond to any public unrest that would sporadically burst out in the environment over the days to come.
Yes. And in paragraph 39, you deal with the use of negotiators. What is their primary relevance in public order policing?
Well, I know there have been views expressed that you get people trained to negotiate in crowd control situations, and I respect that. The negotiator course presented by the police is a 3-week course at this time, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a basic and an advanced course. And it's to deal with conflict resolution through dialogue. And as I said before, in a nutshell, that's what it covers. So the scenarios after which the training has taken place exposes the negotiator basically to interhuman conflict and how to lower emotion and to restore rationale, and thereby lead the perpetrator, if one could say, or a suspect, back into the direction of adherence to law. And that's pretty much what it's about. It's to try and avert tactical option, to allow a situation to restore itself through dialogue.
And through experience, how effective is this tool of negotiating an unrest situation down?
Well, to my knowledge, it's been used even within the public order policing throughout the years. And I think the numbers of cases that you can see in the public order policing which were resolved peacefully attest to this. And many times it's not even per se a qualified negotiator or someone trained in the POPs resolution methods that will go forward, but the senior person would try. As I've stated before, one of the first steps that a police official will take, whether he be a policeman on a patrol vehicle or a public order policeman or even through the tactical ranks, would always be to engage in dialogue first, to try to resolve any situation without needing to apply a tactical option. And your question in such, negotiators have been used successfully throughout South Africa since the early 1990s.
Yes. And then you deal with the rationale for including the razor wire. You deal with that in paragraph 40. You point to the fact that one of the advantages of using razor wire is really to prohibit physical confrontation between the police and the protesters.
Yes, that was probably one of the main reasons for the placement of it.
Second, you say it was for the use to show force and show the protesters that their conduct, if it goes outside line, the police would have to react to it.
Well, the razor wire was there, and it was deployed in the phase 2, or stage 2, as we later know it, for that reason, to sensitize the strikers to the fact that it was available and it was there to be used, so that it wasn't something they may heighten, an immediate heighten of emotion amongst the strikers if the police pulled into position immediately to be utilized.
And you also point out to the fact that that also would help put away a need for use of firearms.
Well, for that matter, hopefully the use of non-lethal methods of force as well. Because with the physical barrier there, as we know, it creates a psychological barrier as well. So once it's deployed, one would expect the strikers not to approach it. However, if they did and tried to come through the smaller weakened gaps between the nyalas and the trailers, that's where non-lethal methods from public order policing could be utilized to riposte their advances. But it in essence would allow for smaller areas of infiltration into the police's neutral or safe area, for that matter, and not just a wide open space that the police would need to defend.
But also you tell us that this was also intended to negative the impact of the sharp-edged metal weapons that the protesters were using.
Well, yes, it's in essence, if we could put up a physical barrier, being razor wire, it would keep a separation between strikers and police. And in that sense, police would not need to utilize, hopefully, any force to keep the protesters away. Without that barrier there, should the strikers approach the police, one would have to have some way of the police defending themselves.
And under paragraph 41, you deal with why you considered Nkaneng's settlement to be a negative attraction point.
Yes.
What do you say? Why was that the case?
Well, numerous factors. We were concerned, obviously, for the residents in Nkaneng as well as the settlement to the southwest of Kopi 1. Previous experience has shown that if there is a police dispersion, that strikers, for this matter, could move into those environments and start venting their anger or their emotions because of the police action on innocent bystanders, possibly those that they deemed were not participating in the strike or that left, for that matter, on the day. Foreign nationals, xenophobia attacks, And then, of course, for the police to still carry out their mission, which was still to disarm those with dangerous weapons, and for the police to move between houses, the strikers could adopt guerrilla tactics, break into smaller groups, making it very difficult for the police to track them down. And, of course, they could use the collateral of innocent bystanders between themselves and the police as well.
We have dealt at length with the role of POP in that type of environment, what it is that they do or can do to diffuse an unrest situation, right?
Yes.
Because in paragraph 42, you then deal with the various disciplines that were to be used in this operation. You've also explained, as you do, on the top of page 119, the role of STF. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And to tell us that STF is employed only when negotiations fail, and their role is to neutralize the threat, to restore order and affect an arrest through a force continuum.
Yes, the context I'm speaking in here again is reflecting on an STF in the STF role where they would be at, say, a hostage situation. That they would never be employed tactically without first negotiations taking place, and the chief negotiator or the negotiating coordinator would submit to the scene commander or overall commander that this was not going to be resolved in that manner, and now the hostages, in this case, their lives are so endangered that a tactical option is recommended in order to save them.
Okay. And then you deal with the role of the STF, which we have explained. But more importantly, you deal under paragraph 42.7 at the page 121 with the role of the NIU and the TRT.
That's correct.
What do you tell us there?
Are you referring specifically to paragraph 42.7?
Yes, that the NIU and the TRT are trained to utilize the continuum,
yeah,
possibly having the available taser.
In the previous pages, in dealing with the Special Task Force in the context of their operations, what I was saying there in essence was there is always a force continuum. Even if the Special Task Force is tasked to go tactical into a situation, even they have a force continuum. And it always starts as well with physical presence and verbal command. Obviously, if life is immediately endangered, one would respond in self-defense or in private defense of a colleague, or of a hostage for that matter. But there is always a force continuum applied by the Special Task Force, and this is also so for the TRT and the NIU, who would follow a similar force continuum of first utilizing verbal command and the shock presence of the shock factor of their presence of a tactically cleared officer, before, of course, moving to unarmed combat techniques, depending on what they have with them, the utilization of pyrotechnics, stun grenades. Special Task Force, again, has taser weapons, which literally neutralizes the threat through a shocking feeling, not dangerous to them, as we've been taught. And there's methods that we would use during all of these, again, to approach suspects, for that matter, without having to utilize sharp point ammunition.
Yes, well, we know in Marikana, at least the STF was there but didn't play much of a significant role. Can we now focus on what you say was the relevance of the TRT and that of the NIU against paragraph 42.13? You say these units are trained specifically, that is the STF, yes, the NIU, and the TRT.
That's correct.
Are trained specifically to advance through these type of difficult rural terrains in small teams, ranging from body pairs to larger sections, yes, and are more skilled at clearing crevices and bush terrain. Was that the role you had planned for these units in the Marikana operation?
Well, that was the role I actually planned for them. I foresaw that obviously that there were three options that could occur when the POPs dispersion took place from the physical side. And as I say, one, that the POPs members may be confronted, as in the gap closed onto the POPs members when they started the dispersion, understanding that POPs themselves would be moving forward. Two, that the strikers may move up onto the high rocks And that I anticipated would actually be their option, that they may go up onto the high rocks to evade the water cannon and the POPs members. And in that case, this is where the TRT, the NIU, and the SDF would be applied, because they have specific training to deal with close encounter in these type of environments. We normally refer to them in the training as jungle lanes, where they can work in either buddy pairs or as teams. And they go in again using their force continuum to approach dangerous suspects and execute arrests. The POPs members, however, are not trained specifically in that, but in the 10 tactical options of the POPs member, which doesn't deal with this type of high-risk arrest.
And to the extent of the limitations on POPs training, what was the envisaged role of your NIU TRT, particularly in effecting these so-called high-risk arrests?
Well, obviously when the public order policing dispersion line sweeps through past copy 2, past copy 1, and comes, this was the envisioned plan. It's not what occurred, but once they sweep through and they come to the reorganize or stop line, that the TRT first would be behind them. They would sweep through copy 2 to search and arrest any belligerent protesters that were maybe hiding there with weapons. And the STF and the NIU would go to the larger copy 1, and they would do a similar action there, where they would sweep over that copy as well. And this, in essence, also is to protect the public order policing and any follow-up action, which was supposed to be the phase 3 thereafter. Because to have belligerent protesters at your back whilst you're still going forward is dangerous again for POPs once they've swept through.
And the plan contemplated what would happen in the event the POP line comes under attack?
It did. And the POP were instructed that should they be attacked or should they be advanced upon, and they felt that they were threatened to that point, obviously the operational commander would have been giving certain commands, possibly firing of rubber, but if these didn't dissuade an approach and the approach still came at them, they were to withdraw into their armored vehicles, the Nyalas.
And where would the TRT unit be placed in relation to that?
They were to be behind the public order policing line, but as I stated, at least 100 meters back, so that they had time and space to effect their force continuum.
And that would give them, as you tell us, an opportunity to give a verbal warning, to use the stun grenades and warning shots to dissuade the strikers from attacking them.
That's correct.
Under paragraph 43, you deal with the background and your consideration in applying lesser trained tactical units with live ammunition in a protection role throughout the Operation Platinum. You see that?
Yes.
And to tell us what you told the commanders, what did you say to them?
Just through my analysis of or what I suspected happened possibly on the Monday was that the POPs or TRT members didn't hold the line. As I say again, this is simply my analysis. I was not there. I can't speak on behalf of what truly happened. But when individual police officers are hacked to death without colleagues nearby, then something has gone wrong with regarding the lines that should be in place, or the teamwork. So in saying this, I on more than one occasion where I had the opportunity after the JOCOMs, etc., spoke to some of the team leaders and said to them, they need to keep the line. POPs as well as TRT or whoever needs to hold the line, because the moment they run or they move away and they leave personnel isolated, we're going to have situations where the teams are broken up. The SOPs, for that matter, won't work necessarily, and we're leaving police members exposed again to situations as was experienced on Monday. The other aspect that I also warned them on was one has to consider that in the tenseness of that moment of being confronted by a potential threat, that there's a decision-making process going on. And in pre-making that decision, you can, and obviously we teach this in our hostage rescue courses as well, you assist them into pre-making that decision, because there is a syndrome called contingency fire, sorry, not, I'll get to the word later. But it's where police officers are standing and they're on the break point of whether or not to shoot or not knowing when to shoot. If somebody fires, you tend to find that others may fire as well, unless they've made a pre-decision that they're firing at a verified threat.
Yes. Under paragraph 44, you deal with what the plan contemplated being the cordon search and seizure. You see that at page 126.
Are you talking about
Phase 5?
Phase 5, yes.
Okay. That happened in Marikana much later, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Well, it's what I'm referring to here. I know in Marikana later, Phase 6 took place, or Stage 6, which was the cordon and search of the hostels, which provided fruitful as well. What I'm referring to here is the actual utilizing of the Special Task Force, the NIU, and even up to the TRT to go and do the intelligence-driven high-risk arrests based on previous experience.
There are various questions which were raised by the evidence leaders seeking clarification. You deal with that in section 5, F of your statement in page 127.
Yes.
And this related, amongst others, to how you received the video and photo material from police witnesses. How did this happen?
On the evening of the 16th of August, that Thursday, in the debriefing, Major General Annandale gave an instruction there to all the commanders present that they need to, any video or photo footage needs to be brought in, and he appointed me at that time as the nodal point. So, as from the next morning, I started receiving some of the first photos. I think Colonel Vermaak was already giving me photos, possibly that night. He had been, in the course of the week, coming back and giving me certain photographs. But they came in sporadically. Some of them were given on memory sticks. Members gave them to their commanders on memory sticks. Some of them were given to other senior officers in the JOC who loaded them onto their computers. Then I got them from those commanders. And so it sporadically was given over to us, or to myself.
Okay. And that of Lieutenant Colonel Botha, the video?
Lieutenant Colonel Botha's video I received about, I think it's 2 to 3 weeks after Roots. It was to the introduction to the SAP's legal team, where I was in Potchefstroom. The captain, I don't recall his name. I think it may be McClarkey.
McClarkey, yes.
Yes, he came to actually see me with, well, he came to, I'm not sure for what reason, but we got to speaking about scene 2, which at Roots Week we couldn't get finalization on. And he mentioned that he had lat-longed or pinpointed each piece of evidence, at which I asked him whether I could assist him, because we also wanted to understand exactly who was where evidence was and try and piece the picture together. He later faxed me those documentations, but he did come through the next day, if I'm not mistaken, with Colonel Botha's video footage on a CD or DVD, which he gave over to me.
And to also deal with the photos from Lieutenant Colonel Mere, from Captain Nell, including a video from Captain Nell, photos from Captain Barnard, videos from Sergeant Mhlatsi. Those you deal with on page 130 of your statement.
Yes. It's to the best of my knowledge. As I say, to pinpoint a specific day is difficult, but it's to the best of my knowledge.
Yes. And then there were different PowerPoint formats, plan presentations that you made. What necessitated that to deal with it under paragraph 46 there?
Well, there was the PowerPoint, the presentation of which the officers were briefed throughout the operation in Marikana. After that, and I realized that after Marikana that I needed to clean that up, if I could say. As I've mentioned before, on the Tuesday I presented the full presentation. The Wednesday There were other role players in the JOCOM, and it wasn't necessary to deal with much of what was under situation. And I got to speak to the operational strategy. And on the Thursday, again, I more just used the Google map to orientate the people and speak to them again, reflecting on one or two other slides. So the presentation as such, and I have to say, we didn't have the hindsight we have now. We were not preparing for a commission of inquiry. We were not preparing that people were supposed to have died. So it was supposed to be an operation that simply, day after day, Tuesday was gone, Wednesday was gone, Thursday was gone. And after what happened on Thursday, we started realizing, but we need to just fix this, or I need to fix this, because surely I'm going to need to show this at some stage to somebody. So I tried to reflect as best possible. And I think that would probably cover the presentation which was made on, or I started making on the Thursday evening. But I got called away from that to work on the document which was to be sent to the ministry and obviously to the president to inform him of the event. And then thereafter on the various beginnings of the presentation, which was starting to, as the first, so to say, version, was that for the National Commissioner with a press conference, and moving on to brief the President and the Interministerial Committee, the Provincial Portfolio Committee, etc. So there was little time really, and through all those presentations, each time realizing that it's a presentation, it, in my view, was not to be deemed as evidence. I was simply trying to portray what was given over to the officers, understanding as well that it was from day to day that I was requested to present this. I was never to be a standard presenter of the presentation, and that whoever may take the presentation from me is going to need to present it accurately as well. Thus the building of the presentation of the planning to try to better reflect it, so that whoever presented that presentation would more accurately show it.
Against paragraph 46.2.10, you tell us that you had to start reverse engineer, as it were, the presentations.
Yes, that was in December. One of the police witnesses was testifying, and I received a request or instruction that the legal team needed a plan for each of the days, to which I responded that I didn't have one, but at best I could reverse engineer it. I was unsure for what its purpose was. I knew it had to be shown in the commission, something to do with the current police witness, in order for him to possibly comment. And over a very short period, I had an afternoon, and the next morning I quickly tried to reverse engineer the plan. Because as I stated, in the Marikana operation itself, I would build on top of the plan as we would go. So if there was a small change, I would simply amend the plan as was. I didn't save it daily and pack it away, save it daily and pack it away. So the plan would be changing as I would be going to reflect more clearly what was shown on that day, which is roughly to the Wednesday.
Right. And you cover how it is that you compiled and added onto the presentations from day on to the other.
Yes. The planning presentations.
Yes. At paragraph 46.3 on page 136, you say this all gave rise to many versions of the presentation.
Paragraph?
46.3, page 136.
Okay, yes.
With the first being the one you anticipated the arrival of the National Commissioner. Is
yes.
it? Culminating with those that were compiled at Roots.
Yes.
Okay. You deal with those under paragraph 46, and on paragraph 47, you deal with the original version of the briefing.
Yes, that's what I've discussed.
What do you say there?
As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the original presentation was built already on the Tuesday. It was amended on the Wednesday, for instance, in the coordinating instructions to reflect the coordinating instructions of Wednesday. Not so for Thursday, however, because I didn't use that same slide again. But in essence, the presentation thereafter, I can't recall specifically which of these versions, after all the presentations that were built for the different entities or different dignitaries that I had to brief, was the original one. I, again, wasn't putting this aside as evidence per se. And there may even be that on some of the hard drives or so on, there are reflections of the originals, which I would be open to even view, because it would be, as I say, this started confusing me at some stage as to which was now still the original and which wasn't. But I was just trying to accurately portray what was shown at the different days in the operation by building the other versions of the planning presentations.
Okay. Not that it was ever suggested, but what was your best endeavor in attempting to put as correct a picture as you could relating to how this plan developed?
In April, reflecting back on all the different PowerPoint presentations which deal with Ops Platinum, I went back, I started going through my own documentation, looking at some of my own Google Earth saved formats and so on, and I went back to build my own version of what happened, or the presentations that, as accurately as I could recall them, were presented on that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Of course, you say that against paragraph 51, page 141, you say there, you believe that your intentions of wanting to assist in portraying the full picture of what happened is reflected in your submitting everything in your possession to the Commission, regardless of the humiliation it may cause you, not being as complete and professional in the presentation as it could be.
That's correct. When we were working at Roots, somewhere in the course of Roots, the police purchased a hard drive, which became the master hard drive. And I literally dumped everything that I had, that I'd made on Marikana, into that, which was then under the control, as we know, of Colonel Visser.
All right. Under paragraph G, section 6, you deal with various concerns that have been raised in the hearings, one of which was the so-called Scots plan. You see that at paragraph 52.1?
Yes.
What have you got to say there?
The Scott plan, as it's referred to, is a plan which ultimately gets approved at a JOCOM. It was given the opportunity to all that were present, which goes beyond the JOCOM representatives, to the commanders that were present when they were briefed, to give opportunity to give input, to reject what they heard or saw or was proposed. And as I say, at the end of the day, when this plan was accepted by the JOCOM and by General Mpembe, General Annandale, it was then a police plan. It was not a Scott plan. Scott may have been the architect of a strategy, but ultimately the plan itself and the rollout of that plan, understanding that there are certain standard operating procedures which need to be carried out, etc., are done within the ambits of the police, the guidelines of the standing orders, standard operating procedures of the tactical options of POP, etc.
Part of the other criticism is that the police plan ought to have gone to stage 6 first before implementing the stage 3. You will see that criticism appears, and you deal with it against paragraph 52.17 on page 146.
Again, the coordinate search of hostels is no quick operation. It's something which requires intelligence. Again, you go through the whole planning procedure. And to have the information in place in order to do that, you would also want to know where the strikers, the armed strikers are at that time, So amongst other things, to simply go to a hostel, cordon it off and search it, you may be missing the point. But I think one of the greater reasons for not carrying out a stage 6, the cordon and search, was it would break the spirit of negotiations. And up until Thursday morning, the police were still hopeful that dialogue was going to prevail. So by Thursday, when it was evident dialogue was not going to prevail, obviously at strategic levels the decisions were made, and we moved to a stage 3 or a phase 3.
And was there enough intelligence, though, to do a cordon search and seizure about where the strikers were living, who were they, where the arms were? Did you have enough intelligence at that time to go to stage 6?
Not necessarily, although it was not my call, but there was vague intelligence that a lot of the militant group came from the environment of the career hostel, that being one, although both hostels would have been the targets of the cordon and search, being career hostel as well as Vonnekorp hostel. And then, of course, we even looked at the Nkeneng settlement as a whole, which would have meant a far larger operation with a lot of different technique in order to sweep through there to search for weapons. So it was a huge operation. Possibly better would have been targeted searches, and that would have been intelligence-driven, specifically looking at having the intelligence of where these armed strikers would be at night time before going there to apprehend them. But again, I say that the moment you do that, you break the trust of the dialogue, and one wants a peaceful resolution through dialogue, and you can't go into a peaceful resolution with dialogue when at night time you're going behind the scenes and searching houses, cordoning off areas. It would be a two-faced approach to the negotiation.
The plan is also criticized in making Nkeneng settlement a negative attraction point, the argument being that most of the strikers would come from that neighborhood, and a dispersal process was supposed to facilitate the ability to get to their homes.
Yeah. Again, the dispersion wasn't, the mission given to the police was not simply one of disperse the crowd. It was disperse and disarm, if we see in the OB entry. There were different aspects spoken to there. So it was about taking away weapons, and it was about retrieving any possible firearms that were in their possession, which were taken from the deceased Lonmin security employees and the deceased police members. Excuse me. So it was not simply just about dispersing, but it was about disarming. That's the first fact. The second was, if I look at the situation, and my analysis at the time as well, was that if we should have to close, as I said, the three things that I saw could occur when approaching the militant group was not that they were simply going to disperse, was that they would either approach the police in a counter-action, either go up onto the high ground of the koppies and sit there in order to deem the dispersal action ineffective on them, or if they were, we would want them, for our positive attraction, to move to the open ground where there would just be field, and we would be able to move further to disperse them into further smaller groups in order to disarm those groups. Of course, we were looking at the forensic side as well. We wanted to see for weapons that would have had traces of blood, which would have been swabbed for DNA, etc., and sent away.
The other criticism to the plan is that you ought to have occupied the copy in the morning so that the strikers would not come and gather there, as they used to do the days before. Yes,
and to me that would have not been an option. At the copy, it was an environment that the strikers felt safe. They felt that was, they took ownership of it, and we were happy with that because they were in essence in an environment where they couldn't destroy mine property. We could see them clearly, they could see us clearly. If we had taken that option to dominate the copy before they arrived, they would simply have moved elsewhere. And we didn't want them mobile. We wanted them to be static because dialogue was ongoing, and we knew that if they got mobile, the chance existed that they would go to mine property. And then the police would simply be playing a follow-the-leader action where we'd be trying to anticipate where they were going, cordoning off. It would have put us on maneuvers, which is not what we wanted.
Okay. Concerning the allegations of evidence tampering, you deal with that on paragraph 52.19.
This is just informing how this aspect came to light. And we were sitting in the smaller auditorium at the Rustenburg Commission, working on the Exhibit L, the police presentation, when I was going through different photographs, and I realized that in the same deceased body, in some had weapons and in the other didn't have weapons. And obviously this to me was alarming. As I say, I called Colonel Visser over. He acknowledged what I was seeing, and the decision was taken to go to the police management. And we informed them. They chose to inform the legal team, to inform the commission of the findings, to open it up to say this is what we have found and it's being investigated.
Now, finally, about the plan, was there anything in the plan which made provision for the use of sharp point ammunition?
No, the plan is planned, as I said, to disperse and to arrest, or to disarm and to arrest.
Was that to be achieved through the use of sharp point ammunition?
No. There's a separate POPs action, which is the dispersal action, which is totally separate from the high-risk arrests, which were then to follow, which is a separate action, which is a common policing action, but better suited to tactical units who are trained to carry out high-risk arrests.
Okay. Your confirmatory affidavit deals with those aspects of Exhibit L to which you had direct input. We won't go to each one of them, but that's what your confirmatory affidavit seeks to do. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Chair, those are the questions we have for Colonel Scott.
Thank you. Now that we can either call upon Mr. Oosthuizen to commence cross-examining now, or we could take the tea adjournment now to enable you to take any final instructions you wish before you formally conclude the evidence and cross-examination starts. Because once he's under cross-examination, then certain consequences follow. So what do you want me to do?
That would be preferable if we took the tea adjournment now, Chair.
We'll take the tea adjournment now, and we resume at 11:15. Commission resumes. Mr. Semenya, are there any further questions you wish to ask the witness?
No, Chair. Thank you.
Colonel, you're still under oath. Mr. Shaskerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Colonel, I'm going to start my cross-examination by dealing with the photographic and video evidence that came to you. And there are really four broad objectives of this section of the cross-examination. I want to tell you at the outset what they are so you have a sense of where I'm going. The first is a very formal and technical objective. It's to use your testimony as a way of formally introducing into the Commission all the photographs and videos of the 16th of August that you and I and the parties have seen but have not yet been introduced as exhibits. So I'll be putting to you a series of photographs, asking you to confirm the source and asking you to confirm that as far as you're aware there aren't any further photographs of the 16th or videos of the 16th from that source. The second is to ask you to confirm the correctness of a spreadsheet that you have given to us with details of the source files for all of the photos and videos in Exhibit L. That's to enable the commissioners to know which photographs and videos have proven sources as evidence, which ones don't, and then to decide what weight to give to the photographs and videos in Exhibit L on that basis. The third is to try to get rid of red herrings. And if I can explain that, over a period of many months, the evidence leaders have been liaising with yourself and to a lesser degree Colonel Visser in relation to the video evidence, and in the process a great deal of our concerns have been addressed. But the parties and the commissioners haven't been in on our discussions, and so they may still have many suspicions. Where we're satisfied that there's no reasonable basis for any suspicion, we want to use your evidence to show why we're satisfied that there's no reasonable basis for suspicion. And if I can sort of give you an indicator in that regard, the very first specific topic I'll be addressing with you in that regard is the withdrawal of the two POPs video operators, Warrant Officer Masinya and Ndlovu, on the 16th at around about 1:30. There is some suspicion that there may be secret footage of Scene 1 or Scene 2 that those video operators took, which hasn't been disclosed to the Commission. We've investigated it through exchanges with yourself. We're satisfied there is no such secret footage. We'd like, through your evidence, to try to persuade everybody else in this room of that fact. Now, those are the three easy parts of the video and photo cross-examination, or cooperative parts. Unfortunately, there is a fourth purpose, and that's where we still have concerns. And there we want to put those concerns to you and give you an opportunity to persuade us and the commissioners that our concerns are not well-founded. So if I can start with the first formal topic, which is really just proving videos of the 16th. And Mr. Chairperson, to try to speed this process up, what we have provisionally done is we have assigned a series of exhibit numbers to a succession of, screenshots of photographs and electronic files of photographs and videos. And how we would propose to perform this exercise is to put the screenshots before Colonel Scott as an identification method, and then to ask that the screenshots and the electronic files that represent the photographs that are described on the screenshots be entered into the evidence as exhibits.
Have you prepared a list of the proposed exhibits and the proposed exhibit designations?
We don't have a discrete list, I'm afraid, at this stage. We've got our own rough list. We can prepare a consolidated list over lunchtime and circulate it.
That's fine. So after lunch, we can do the housekeeping in relation to the marking or designating of the exhibits. But in the meanwhile, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I can ask your guidance on one further topic, which is, for convenience sake, we would propose that each set of photographs gets its own exhibit number, where the screenshot will be, to take we would begin with Captain Lust, simply in alphabetical order. We'd propose that the screenshot of his photographs be J5, which is the next sequential exhibit number, but the photographs themselves, because the electronic files are already numbered, would then be J5.030 to .062, which are the existing numbers.
That sounds a sensible way of proceeding.
Now, Colonel, I don't know if you have ready access to the screenshot of Captain Lust's photographs in front of you. We can give you a hard copy if you don't.
No, I have.
Then, can I ask you to confirm that these are photographs of the 16th of August that were provided to you by Captain Lust? Commissioners, I beg your pardon. You too have screenshots of those. They've just been posted above you, and they are, what page? At page 636 of the files that we have given to you. File 3.2. But again, Chairperson...
636, you said?
636. Colonel, can I ask you to confirm that these are photos of the 16th that were provided to you by Captain Lust?
To the best of my recollection, yes. When I received photos, I would create a file with the file name of the person. If something's been added or taken out, I wouldn't be sure, but as I say, that's to the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay, well, and you have, to a certain extent, answered my second question, which is, are you aware of any other photos of the 16th that were taken by Captain Lust?
No.
And Chairperson, if we can then make these, the screenshot JJ5 and the existing photographs which are in the electronic files JJ5.030 to JJ5.062. Sorry, J5 in each case.
Yes. Yes, I think I've agreed now to that mode of proceeding, so you don't have to ask me every time. If I have a problem, I'll raise it.
Right. Moving next to Captain Nell's photos of the 16th, which would be J6. And which the commissioners will find at pages 667 to 668 of their bundles. Colonel Scott, can I ask you again to confirm that those, what we see up in front of us, that those photographs are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you by Captain Nell?
That's correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, you're not aware of any other photographs of the 16th taken by Captain Nell?
No.
And Chair, because there are 2 pages of screenshots, we've called the screenshots 6.1 and 6.2. The next set of photographs are Captain van Heerden's photographs of the Jock, which will be J7. They are on page 683 of the Commissioner's bundle. Colonel, have you got those screenshots? 683.
Van Heerden.
And Colonel, can you confirm that the photos that we see in these screenshots are photos of the 16th that were provided to you by Captain van Heerden?
I'm not sure they were all taken by her, but they were provided by her. I think she appears in one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, we may have to clarify from her who took them. But
They may be taken on her camera. Perhaps she got someone to take a picture of her with her camera, but we'll sort it out when she gives evidence, I take it. Well, unless it can be done by agreement.
I'm sure a statement may suffice for this purpose. But to the best of your knowledge, you're not aware of other photographs taken on the camera of Captain van Heerden of the 16th?
No.
The next bundle are photographs taken on Colonel Marius' camera. The screenshots are from pages 639 to 642. 639 to 642. The exhibit's number will be JJ8.1 to 0.4. And before I ask you questions about these, I might explain that as has been agreed between the parties in terms of how to reconcile times between cameras, Colonel Marius' camera was, I forget the exact amount, but about 11 hours or 14 hours out. So the dates on some of these cameras, the dates on some of these photographs are reflected as dates on the 15th because the camera clock was so far out of time. But after we've recalibrated the dates to match ETV time, we have determined that these are the only photographs of Colonel Marius that were taken on the 16th. And Colonel Scott, can I ask you then to confirm that these are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you from Colonel Marius' camera?
That's correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, there are no other photographs of the 16th taken on Colonel Marius' camera?
That's correct.
For what it's worth, Commissioners, we have been informed that some of these photographs were actually taken by Warrant Officer Nong, who was in Colonel Marius' Nyala, but nothing turns on that at this stage.
They were taken on Colonel Marius' camera?
That's correct. All of them came off Colonel Marius' camera.
My microphone wasn't on. They were taken on Colonel Marius' camera by, is this Warrant Officer?
Warrant Officer Nong.
Thank you.
Then the next set is photographs taken on Colonel Vermaak's Pentax camera. And the screenshots are at page 688. This will be J10. And Colonel, can you confirm that these are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you by Colonel Vermaak from his Pentax camera?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, you're not aware of any other photographs of the 16th taken by Colonel Vermaak on his Pentax? There will be some on his BlackBerry, but we're talking now about his Pentax.
Yes.
Chairperson, due to a glitch in our numbering system, J9 has been reserved for another set of exhibits that we'll get to in due course.
My curiosity will be satisfied in due course.
Indeed, Chairperson. Then we get to Colonel Vermaak's BlackBerry photographs, which is the next series, J11. Again, Colonel, if you can, that's page 687 of the bundles for the commissioners. Colonel, if you can confirm that these are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you by Colonel Vermaak from his BlackBerry.
That's correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, there are no other photographs of the 16th that were taken by Colonel Vermaak on his BlackBerry.
That's correct.
Now the numbers really start jumping around because we get to Warrant Officer Barnard. I'm afraid our exhibits list was done in alphabetical order. And we've just moved from C, Colonel, to W, Warrant Officer. These will be exhibits 27, Warrant Officer Barnard. And the page for Warrant Officer Barnard, I'm told, Chairperson, that these were omitted from the paginated bundles that were given to yourself and the commissioners. We have copies, if we might hand them up. And Colonel Scott, do you have a copy of the Warrant Officer Barnard screenshots?
I'm looking myself.
where should we insert them? I take it, if for example, they follow after 780 is the last page, we can either make them 781 and following, or we could make them say 686, capital A, capital B, etc.
I think, Chairperson, if we could just put them at the end of the bundle. So
that'll be 781 and following.
781 and following.
Have they been punched? Have they got?
We can have them punched before they are handed up to you.
Insert them in our files. Thank you. So this will be 781. Just 781 or
and 782.
782. And so I didn't hear. Has the Colonel got copies?
I have a copy, Chairperson.
And it's triple J 27. 27.1 and 27.2. Chairperson, can I continue?
Yes, you may proceed.
So, Colonel, will you confirm that these are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you by Warrant Officer Barnard?
Confirmed, yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, there are no other photographs of the 16th that were taken by Warrant Officer Barnard? Colonel, the next set that we are coming to is a more complicated set. These are videos that were recovered from the recycled bin of the SAPS hard drive. And again, Commissioners, we're going to have to hand up a screenshot for yourselves because the screenshot was erroneously omitted from your files. We'll mark it 783. And this will be triple J. It will be triple J 26. But I must apologize, I've skipped over Warrant Officer Ramanala, who is now up on screen. So if we can quickly deal with Warrant Officer Ramanala, who's at page 680 of the Commissioner's bundle, who will be triple J 29.1 to 29.3. And Colonel, can you confirm that these are photographs of the 16th that were provided to you by Warrant Officer Ramanala?
Yes, I confirm they are.
And to the best of your knowledge, there aren't any other photographs of the 16th taken by Warrant Officer Ramanala?
Yes.
Those are triple J 29.1 to 29.3. To get then to the deleted videos recovered from the recycled bin, which will be triple J 26. Now, Colonel, these videos were on the SAPS hard drive that was provided to the parties, but they weren't visible on that hard drive because they'd been deleted from the hard drive before that hard drive was circulated. They were then recovered by our technical expert from the hard drive, although they hadn't originally been visible. Now, you've explained to us that they were files which SAPS had obtained from Lonmin by means of a Section 205 subpoena. Can you confirm that?
This is Colonel Visser that relayed that information, not myself.
Yes, it was in your presence, though.
Yes, I was there, yes.
Are you not able to support it yourself?
Chairperson, as I say, the files with regard to the recycle bin and those that I got from the Section 205 from Lonmin, Colonel Visser obtained through the channels of the 205, and the deleting or the recycled bin as well are also with him sorting through the hard drive.
Sorry to interrupt you. Something which you yourself have no personal knowledge. Is that what you're saying?
No.
But these files were on your hard drive at a certain point?
On the police hard drive, yes.
Well, when we recovered them, they had names that were recovered as DG14 through to DG54. Now, we surmise that DG would stand for Duncan George, which are your first names. Our technical expert tells us that the DG nomination of a file in a recycle bin is taken from the name of the computer where that recycle bin is stored.
Anybody else with anything to do with the videos whose initials are DG, apart from you?
Chairperson, as I say, I wasn't involved in the receiving of evidence from the 205, Section 205 from Lonmin. That Colonel Visser did. However, that when they became the nodal point, the photographs would still be given over to myself to peruse to see what was good for utilizing in Exhibit L. But Colonel Visser himself states that he went through these and deleted them because I have no recollection of deleting them.
They passed through your hands before they were deleted. Is that right?
Well, there's many of them.
You've said you saw them. I'm not asking you whether you deleted them, but did they pass through your hands before they were deleted?
I can't testify to that, Chairperson. And as I say, I would need to see them in person, but I don't recollect from what I've seen there. I've worked extensively with the other files which do happen to appear in all the daily versions, but not necessarily these.
Any of your other files marked DG with a number?
No, not that I recall either. I'm sure there should be some way of checking or whether my computer does that or not.
Well, there may be an easier way of doing this, which is to open up some of the other DG folders. All of these DG folders are recycled folders. They're from a recycle bin on one, well, they're from the recycle bin that was on the SAP's hard drive. But their name suggests that the hard drive was attached to a particular computer at the time that these files were deleted. I wonder if we could...
Chairperson, if I may, I recall Colonel Visser also stating that even amongst those files are files of his personal police work. And it would be impossible for me to have his day-to-day police work in my possession, for that matter.
Amongst which files?
Some of those that were in the recycle bin. I'm not sure of which he's speaking, but this was in that same consultation we're speaking of. He mentioned that some of his day-to-day police work was also in that recycle bin. That's right, Chairperson.
His first name is Victor.
Yes.
So if his initials were used, they wouldn't have been DG.
No.
When you received all these photographs from different sources, did they go into a particular folder, or were they just stored on your computer?
Chairperson, that's why I'm saying I know that Colonel Visser went through, being in the province of Northwest, dealing with the detectives in the Northwest, which I didn't have access to, through the 205, got Lonmin's footage, etc. And I don't recall that even being at Roots. So it's possible that some files there come from Roots, but he testifies himself in his statement to saying that he cleaned up the hard drive, and things that he thought were not applicable or necessary, he deleted, which puts them automatically into a recycle bin. So but possibly one could check to see if, as he said, if there are documents in this that pertain to his day-to-day work, then it would be impossible that they come from my computer.
Maybe we can get to that, and it may be that file DG60 would help in that regard. But before we get to that, let's possibly show the files in the form that we were informed that they existed prior to their deletion, which was as a series that had names called Picture 01, Picture 02, and so on. I wonder if we could call... Commissioners, that description is at pages 126 to 128 of your files. 126 to 128, and we've given it the exhibit number J 65.1 to 65.3. I wonder if we can call the picture series up onto screen. J 65.1 to 65.3.
this in our file 1?
File 1, yes, Chairperson.
We have the file 3.1.
I think it was the original, the file 1, the very first file.
What number is it, did you say? 126.
What's the page number?
126. 126. Yes, it must be in this. It's not in 3.
What's the page number?
126 to 128. The screenshots are on 128, what we see on screen at the moment, and 126 and 127 are the file properties.
He said Triple J. What is the Triple J number again?
65.
65.1 to 65.3.
65.3.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could go to page 1, to the thumbnails of those files so that Colonel Scott can see the thumbnails. Colonel, do you recall seeing these files at any stage before the SAPS hard drive was handed over to the parties?
There are pictures towards the bottom side where looking through the Nyala which look familiar. But as I say, you probably find similar photos or videos taken through the Nyala at the same time as well.
Yeah, Colonel, you've had copies of these videos now for, gosh, I would imagine 6 weeks since we first raised this issue with you. Have you worked through these videos?
No, I haven't personally opened them and worked through them, no. I've looked at them in thumbnail like you're showing now.
And we raised them with a very specific concern that these had been deleted and we wanted to know where they came from, but you haven't worked through them?
No.
Who has worked through them from SABC?
I believe Brigadier Pretorius did that. She worked through them and actually placed them back to where they originally came from, if I'm not mistaken.
Because after someone at SAPS worked through them, we were then informed that the picture series that we see up there was the source of those deleted SAPS files.
Yeah.
The series we see up there is picture series 130822. Is that correct?
It's exhibit Triple J 65.3, the
Yes,
files
yes,
depicted
yes,
on Triple J 65.3.
In the tram lines at the top of what we now see appears the following, picture series 130822. So you talked about the picture series.
No, the 130822 just reflects the date on which SAPS gave us a copy of those videos, Chairperson. For record purposes, it would probably be simplest to refer to them as Triple J 65. The videos depicted, the screenshots depicted on Triple J 65.3. Sorry, Colonel, to come back. Can you confirm that SAPS conveyed to us that these are the videos that were the source of the deleted videos that we exhibited in Triple J 26?
What I do know is, as I say, when the requests for clarification, etc., come in from the evidence leaders, initially they are sent through the legal team to Brigadier Pretoria, sitting at the police office. She deals with much of what she can. It's what she's doing. And she has, in speaking to me and working through these, that's one of the reasons I didn't, is saying that she put them back into more or less sequence that she could. But I'm speaking on hearsay from her side now.
Well, were you present at a meeting where that explanation was given to the evidence leaders?
By Brigadier Pretorius.
In fact, if I recall correctly, by Colonel Visser.
I may have been. I don't really recall. But well, I know I was at the meeting, but I can't recall everything that was said there.
So if we want to inquire further in relation to the origin of these files, who should we be speaking to? To whom should we be speaking?
Brigadier Pretorius and Colonel Visser would be good starting points.
And your evidence is there's nothing that you can add at this stage?
No.
When did you first see these files?
When Brigadier Pretorius mentioned that there was a request for clarification, she sent out an email. But I never got to working on these. As I say, what I'm seeing now and what I have printed out for me in that format, but I've not gone into that and opened any of these to review them personally, look at the actual video footage personally.
Why not?
I didn't deem it necessary. The Exhibit L was completed, and that was my task, was to utilize video footage to build Exhibit L. So I haven't per se since then had much to do with any video footage or photographs thereafter, unless requested specifically to do something, to look for something or so, which wasn't the case here.
Colonel, when did the water cannon video footage come in?
I think that was in early November somewhere.
Before or after Exhibit L was presented to the Commission?
I think it was after, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Certainly conveyed to the evidence leaders that was after. Did you have anything to do with the water cannon footage?
Other than going, I live in Pretoria. The Commission was at the time in Rustenburg. Other than going on a weekend to fetch the footage and take it back to the police nodal point in Rustenburg, that's all.
You didn't view it?
Well, no. I viewed it, obviously, when the police started viewing it. But it's not my place to have taken that and to have viewed it myself, and so I was tasked to hand it over, which I did.
But you then thereafter did view it?
I have viewed it, yes, thereafter.
Why would you be interested in viewing that but not viewing these videos?
Well, that was of interest to see if the water cannons actually found something, because we were unsure ourselves at that time. We didn't know it existed.
And you weren't interested whether this video footage found anything?
No, this was made aware to me somewhere now in August this year. At that time, the police were still presenting their case to some degree.
But I don't understand that answer, Colonel. The police were still presenting their case at the time that the water cannon footage came in.
Yes, but remember, when this was handed over, the explanation given was from Colonel Visser that these were videos and files that he deemed unnecessary, that he'd been through, that he said were either short, were blurred, had no significance. So taking his word for that, I didn't feel any need to pursue them further.
I understand that we'll obviously have to ask Colonel Visser about it when he comes, but do I understand that Colonel Visser looked at these before the selection was made of the videos that we used for Exhibit L, and he decided that they weren't necessary and effectively discarded them?
To my understanding, yes, Chair.
So the work of choosing what went into L was presumably divided between you and Colonel Visser.
Yes.
Is that right? And this was his area of responsibility as opposed to yours?
Yes. Well, like I say, if it's got to do with the Section 205, the Lonmin footage, etc., then that was brought in via him through his initiative by going to the detectives to get that evidence. I had no dealing with that.
Colonel, what was the division of labor between yourself and Colonel Visser in relation to Exhibit L?
At that time, he was coordinating the inputs that were given to him. He was perusing the statements or any relevant documentation that he could build a history on, and I was tasked to look at photographs and at video footage and to compile as much as that as I could, and then to also consider thereafter more what happened at scene 2.
Just your answer in relation to video footage. What I must apologize. Can you repeat it?
We were to put together a picture or paint a picture for the commission that best as possible represented the happenings of the day of the 16th and, well, before that. And my role specifically, because I was dealing with video and photograph footage from as early as the media presentation for the National Commissioner, continued with that role, dealing with photos and video footage.
And when was the Lonmin Section 205 subpoena issued?
I don't know.
Were you not aware that materials had been provided by Lonmin before the finalization of the presentation?
The only footage I was made aware of was footage that was shown to us while still at Lonmin, when we put the briefing together for the National Commissioner, which General Mpembe spoke to, where there was certain video footage there made available from Lonmin. But the 205 and that video footage, it's possible Colonel Visser showed some parts of it that he may have thought relevant at some stage. But there were also breaks when we were building Exhibit L, or the presentation of the police. We didn't work on it full time from after the commission up until its time it was presented. There were certain weeks where I was returned to my unit, where Colonel Visser himself would continue with Exhibit L. And I recall this because he came through to my office at one stage to assist him in putting together scene 2 of what happened at scene 2.
Colonel, I want to take you to the passage in your statement where you describe what seems to be a division of labor between yourself and Colonel Visser. If I can just find my reference. If you can go to page 102.
You're referring to Exhibit Triple H20?
Triple H20, indeed, Chairperson. There you say, Colonel Visser and I worked in unison on the police presentation. He assisted me in gathering much of the historic information and consolidating the information from the breakaway groups for input into the presentation. I became mostly responsible for the sequencing and the video and photograph visual inputs in the presentation and the information in the presentation from the 16th onwards. Is that a correct reflection of your division of labor?
Yes, but I can say already that there was a part of the presentation that Colonel Visser brought in at a late stage, and that had to do with video grabs of, I think it's the 12th, which showed the strikers with the shotgun of the deceased miners.
And apart from that section of the presentation, in terms of video and photographic input and information from the 16th onwards, that was your responsibility?
Mostly from what I can recall, yes.
Now, if we can go back then to Triple J 65, the thumbnails of the deleted videos. And can we call them back up on screen? we've been through these videos. They contain footage shot inter alia on the 16th. Now, it would seem to me that video footage of the 16th was something that fell squarely within your side of the division of labor.
When it came to the inputting of that video footage and the photographs into the presentation, keeping the structure of the presentation running, yes. But there were times where we had, well, up to three people perusing through photographs, going through video footage. There were enormous amounts. The amount that we received from the media through our media liaison offices, it was impossible for me to have screened everything on my own. So there were times where people would find clips, etc., give them to me, show the relevance, and ask me to input them, as was the case with the strikers with the shotguns of the miners on the 12th, where Colonel Visser specifically showed that footage and asked that we make video grabs and put them in.
Yes, but in terms of the chronological division of the presentation, if I understood your evidence correctly, what happened before the 15th was Colonel Visser's responsibility. What happened on the 16th and afterwards was yours.
Yes, but it is so, as I say, as the general responsibility. But it's not to say that I had no further input into what happened before that. When we would work through that presentation, we would work through together. However, as I say, he put together most of what happened up until the end of the 15th. And from the 16th, while he was still doing those, I was starting to work on the 16th and beyond. But it's not to say that it is solely all my input that is from the 16th onwards.
I'm not sure if I understood that answer correctly. I understood you to say that you had some input on what came before the 16th. Are you suggesting that there were other people who had input on what came on the 16th as well?
Well, of course, we had to get our information from certain areas, from certain people. So, in fact, we structured the presentation. We ran it as best as we could according to the chronological sequence of events as we were told at Roots and in consultation there afterwards. And, in effect, put in what we were told as best as we could.
But if I was a SAPS member and I had video footage of the 16th, to whom would I be instructed to provide that video footage?
Well, after the instruction at specifically at Lonmin, when we were still in that evening of the 16th, many of them still brought it to me individually.
Yes, Colonel Annandale, Major General Annandale at the outset had identified you as the nodal point to which video material should be brought.
At that time that we were at Lonmin. That changed once we got to Roots. And as I say, the police hard drive was bought. I gave everything I had at that time over onto the police hard drive. I was no longer a nodal point, but what would still occur is that police officers would still bring me their footage if we were sitting at places for consultation.
Can I just clarify the chronology a bit more precisely? You testified this morning that the hard drive was purchased around the time of Roots. Your statement, I think, suggests something slightly different, and I just want to clarify that. If you go to page 128 of your statement, triple H20, your consolidated statement. There at the top, maybe start at 127, paragraph 45.2. On the evening of the 16th in the JOCCOM meeting, Major General Annandale gave instruction that all footage, video or photo was to be brought to myself as a nodal point. He repeated this instruction on numerous meetings in the days following. My laptop computer became the nodal point for the footage until about 2 days later, when a 1 terabyte external hard drive was made available as the nodal point. I was responsible for this nodal point until after Roots, where the responsibility was transferred to Brigadier Pretorius. So can I clarify a few issues flowing from what you say there? First of all, you state that Major General Annandale gave the instruction on the evening of the 16th that all footage, video or photo was to be brought to you as the nodal point.
Yes.
That's correct. Then you say he repeated this instruction on numerous meetings in the days following. That's correct too.
While still at Lonmin, yes. Remember,
while everyone was still based in Marikana.
Yes.
Then you say the nodal point was originally your computer, your laptop, until about 2 days later. That would be the 18th or the 19th, when the external hard drive was made available.
No, that is a 1 terabyte external hard drive. I think I'm not sure where it got its origins. I think it may have either come from our ISM or given to us by Lonmin for the purposes of starting to collate everything, which I still have in my computer bag as we're sitting here. But a separate SABC hard drive was bought at Roots, the smaller black ones, which are utilized thereafter.
So you still have that separate original 1 terabyte hard drive?
Yes.
And have you deleted any material off that, or is it in the form that it was when you eventually copied it over to the SABC hard drive?
That's why I'm saying at Roots I dumped everything that was on there and that was on my computer into the new police master hard drive. And since then I've upgraded the hard drive I use off the police's hard drive. Obviously their hard drive became more extensively used, so I would reload back onto mine.
Okay, Colonel, but we need to distinguish between hard drives here. You have an internal hard drive in your laptop.
Yes.
Is the answer that you've just given an answer that refers to the internal hard drive?
My laptop has an internal hard drive. At Roots, 2 days after the incident, I was given a 1 terabyte to transfer everything over because it was becoming quite bulky.
Sorry if I might stop you. At Lonmin, 2 days after them.
Yes. At Roots, the police bought external hard drive, which I took my internal hard drive and the external hard drive I'd been working on and dumped everything over onto their hard drive, and they became the nodal point.
That I understand, but my question was a slightly different one. 2 days after the incident, while you're still at Lonmin in Marikana, the police purchase a 1 terabyte external hard drive, and then you copy your materials onto that 1 terabyte external hard drive, which becomes the nodal point. You still have that 1 terabyte external hard drive in your possession. Have you deleted any material off it since then?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well, could I ask that hard drive be made available to the evidence leaders so that we can see what material was on it? Because that would tell us what material SABC had in its possession at the start of Roots, if I understand correctly.
Yes, well, it's available. As I say, though, I'm unsure if there has been deleting done or not. But what's on there at the moment is on there.
Well, let's just go back a step. Has it been in your custody since it was purchased on the 18th or 19th of August? Yes. And so if there are deletions that have taken place, it would have been deletions that you have effected?
Yes.
You can't recall that you deleted anything specifically?
No, not that I can recall, no.
Okay. Well, can I ask that that hard drive be made available to the evidence leaders so that we can inspect it and see what material is on it and whether there have been any deletions? I think I'm going to leave the topic of the deleted videos until after that exercise, and possibly it's something that we must take further with Colonel Visser.
May I just ask a question if you're moving away, Mr. Chaskelson? At Roots, when you and Colonel Visser were working on the compilation of the photographs and videos, were just the two of you working on it, or was there a team, and if so, who's in the team?
Ma'am, it was, if I recall, it was the two of us. I think it was just the two of us that we had our computers next to each other. I'm not sure at what stage the police's hard drive was purchased, but I think it was possibly within the first week or possibly the second week, early the second week. Because that I do pertinently remember was as loading everything I had over onto the new police master hard drive.
And just before I leave this topic, can you give us a more precise date on when custody of the police archive, as it were, passed from you to Brigadier Pretorius and Colonel Visser?
I think at the outset of Roots, already Brigadier Visser was introduced, and it was envisioned from that time that he should take over the nodal point. And this is why I say I'm not sure as to when that other hard drive was procured, but I'm sure that can be tracked down, or it should be able to.
Sorry, which other hard drive are you referring to at this stage?
The hard drive that was produced at Roots for the SABC to become the SABC master hard drive.
And you're not sure when it was procured or whether it was procured?
No, when. It was not in my possession, so I can't say whoever got it, when they got it.
And once the archive was out of your custody and and now under the control of either Brigadier Pretorius or Colonel Visser with the new hard drive, how did you keep up to date with materials that were coming in?
I would from time to time ask or request of them to update the 1 terabyte I had off theirs. So in essence, I know there were times that I tried to peruse through and see what I didn't have and download only that which I didn't have. I think there may have even been times where I tried to dump the whole lot down, which is why I say it could have been that in that case, in bringing everything back over, I may have deleted what I had.
Sorry, can you clarify that answer? Are you suggesting that when you brought everything else over, files that were on your directory would have been overwritten by what came in, or that you consciously deleted files before everything else was brought back?
Well, that's what I'm trying to maybe establish now at the same time, because the hard drive was so large, to start bringing it over was huge. So I started looking inside the hard drive to what I didn't have. But at some stage, this is why I say I'm unsure about whether I did delete or not, because I think I actually pulled the whole hard drive over to make sure I had everything and deleted what I had, knowing that everything that I had gone to that hard drive and should still be on it anyway. I understand that you can do the same thing about bring it over, and it has got the issue of skip and all that type of thing. But I'm not sure. I can't recall how I've done it.
So you're saying it's possible that you did consciously delete material from your original hard drive before copying?
It could be possible, yes.
Before you did that exercise, presumably you would have checked that what you were bringing back contained everything that you had on your hard drive, because you wouldn't want to lose material in the process.
Well, you check the folders, the name of the folders. So to go through every single photo, go through every single video is a mammoth task.
Well, maybe then I can ask a different question. At sometime in July this year, you provided the evidence leaders with a directory printout of 2 folders on your laptop hard drive. They were called photos and videos. Possibly, if we can call those exhibits up. If I can just find that exhibit number and a reference for it. There are exhibits Triple J 3.1 and 3.2, and they I beg your pardon. It's Triple J 12 and Triple J 13. Triple J 12, Triple J 13. If we can call those up. And they start at page 20, capital A of file 3.1 is where the photos directory printout comes. And page 167 of file 3.1 is where the videos directory printout comes. Again, we've given you copies of these directory printouts some time ago. To begin with, can you confirm that they accurately describe the contents of the directories on your laptop directories, /photos and /videos, respectively?
I'm not sure where the... look, I have a file on my computer, which obviously keeps photos and videos in it, because I'm obviously asked every now and then to reference or go and look at something. But the photos and videos that I gave over, are we talking the meeting in early August this year?
It was, in fact, in July this year, if I recall correctly, when you made available to the evidence leaders your laptop for copying over the photos directories and videos directories on that laptop. There were directories called /photos with a series of subdirectories underneath them, and some directories called /videos with a series of subdirectories underneath them.
Maybe it would be best if I actually, what was there then is there now, so we could maybe look.
Well, this is a directory printout of what was there then, and it's about, this is the /photos directory, and it runs for many, many pages. But I was hoping that this would be a relatively simple exercise, because these documents were made available to you some time ago. And I was hoping that you'd have been able to do this exercise so that you could say yes or no, because if we're going to do it in the Commission now, it may take several hours. So maybe if we can short-circuit this process, if you take these two exhibits, which are directory printouts of those two directories that were given to us, can you go through them overnight and confirm that they accurately describe what is on the /photos directory on your laptop and on the /videos directory on your laptop?
I can do that, but just maybe for the record as well, what's on my laptop again has been pulled in off the 1 terabyte hard drive of the SABC master hard drive.
Again, Colonel, bear in mind that we need to have clarity between which 2 terabyte hard drives we're discussing, because there was one that came in 2 days after the event that was in your custody, which is still apparently in your briefcase and which we will receive shortly. There is another that was purchased at Roots and was then in the custody of Brigadier Pretorius and Colonel Visser. So which of the two are you describing?
Well, I think I can more accurately say that what's on my 1 terabyte now reflects what's on the SABC's 1 terabyte master, having updated it off that one. What's on my computer is videos taken off that, because it's a bulky thing to have. You need a power supply every time you want to plug it in. For instance, that external hard drive. It's not one that just works off the computer itself. Thus, to just put the photographs and the videos back onto my computer for reference when I need them. So those exist on my computer, but they're more than likely a reflection of what comes off the police's hard drive, of what I've been updating over time.
Okay, but so you're saying that what's on your hard drive today, that which we copied, is really a reflection of what was put onto the ongoing 1 terabyte hard drive that currently resides in the custody of Brigadier Pretorius and Colonel Visser?
As far as my knowledge, yes.
And when you would update material from, maybe for descriptive purposes, let's call it the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive. The Brigadier Pretorius hard drive will be the current SABC master. The Colonel Scott hard drive will be that 1 terabyte hard drive that you were given on the 18th or 19th. And your laptop hard drive will be the internal hard drive in your laptop. So when you would update your laptop hard drive from the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive, how would you do that? Would you dump the contents of the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive onto your laptop, or would you pick off individual directories that you were missing and add them to your laptop hard drive?
Well, initially, when I got the 1 terabyte, I took everything off my computer. Everything went from my computer, eventually from the 1 terabyte to the SABC master.
Colonel, sorry to interrupt you there. Our language needs to be quite precise here because there's a serious scope for misunderstanding one another. You say you took everything off your laptop onto the 1 terabyte.
Yes.
Do I understand you to say that you copied what was on your laptop onto the 1 terabyte, or that you copied it onto the 1 terabyte and thereafter deleted it from your laptop?
Deleted it from my laptop for the reason of space on my computer's hard drive. And then from there, it went to the police hard drive. From the police hard drive, it's come full circle back because there's been times where I've needed to obviously look at it again.
Okay, but again, we need some precision here. I'm interested in the route by which it returns. When I was asking you about the Colonel Scott hard drive, the extra 1 terabyte that you received on the 18th or 19th, your answer was you may have deleted some materials on that to make space. I'm not suggesting this is verbatim what your answer was, but what you communicated to me is, first of all, you couldn't recall whether you had deleted materials from it, but it was possible that you had deleted materials from that external hard drive to make space for the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive materials that were going to be copied back onto it. Is that correct?
Well, I'm trying to get to the logic of and explain why it has gone the way it has. If you take the whole of the SABC hard drive now and you transfer it over, it's going to take anything from 4 to 6 hours to transfer. Now, to sit there and each time it stops itself and it tells you there's a file already existing of that name. Do you want to skip it or do you want to replace it? So sometimes, as I was saying, it's easier to just remove everything and to re-download the lot. And you leave the computer running whilst you're busy with other things whilst we're sitting here. And it carries on its own. So I can't accurately say. I haven't pertinently taken notes or made a conscious reminder to myself about when I did my updatings or specifically how I did them. But my logic would tell me that that's the process I would follow.
Okay, but Colonel, that explanation worries me for 2 reasons. The first is that when that pop-up box appears on your computer, it gives you an option. It says, do you want to overwrite the existing file? Do you want to skip the copying? Or do you want some option that you can keep both? But it also says, do you want to repeat this for every one of the next 10,000 conflicts? So if your concern is wasting time and not having to return to your computer screen every 10 seconds over a 6-hour period, you tick the box that says, repeat this for each one of the 10,000 conflicts. Are you familiar with that process?
I am.
Okay, so time is not really an explanation for wanting to delete the existing contents of the SABC hard drive. My second concern with your explanation is the reason that pop-up box comes up is precisely to protect you from losing material on your existing hard drive that you wouldn't want to lose. And particularly in a situation like this one, where you'd want to preserve everything, it seems to me quite a rash step to take to wipe out the entire contents of what may be the only archive of certain materials, in the hope that what you replace it with will copy what was once there. What's your response to that?
Firstly, I was always to be the lesser. So whatever I was gaining back, there was always supposed to be more coming my way. I should not have been deleting anything. If something was deleted, it would have been deleted off the police hard drive. So in essence, if I had 9 files, there should be 10 coming back my way, not 8. And I was updating mine with more information, not updating it with less. That's the first. And the second is, as I say, I'm speaking from a lot of speculation, trying to recall where you're going and what you're saying, because I didn't take conscious notes of who, what, and how. And all I'm saying is I did update my hard drive, the one that I have with me now, according to the SABC hard drive, because I understood that over a period of months, they had gained a lot more information than what I had. Whether I've deleted that information, I can't be sure. But as I'm saying, and I said to you as well, I'm trying to recall and trying to be logic about how I would have done it.
Yeah, but Colonel, I have some difficulties with this explanation. You were the only nodal point for the SAP's video and photographic archive until the 27th of August at the earliest.
That's correct.
So for a period of more than 10 days after the event, when most of the video and photographic material would have been gathered, you were the only nodal point for SAPS.
Most of the photographic material, most of the POP's video material, but as far as other video materials, we're relying on open source media. There wasn't much else. We didn't have water cannon, we didn't have Lonmin helicopter, we didn't have Colonel Botha, I didn't have the video footage, I think came in during routes from Captain Nell. In effect, we had what came in through Anne Mushlat, sorry, I'm not sure of the Ryland. Those things only came in at routes, not before the time.
But from your perspective, you weren't to know that on the 27th there was a whole lot of other video material floating around there that you hadn't received.
I wasn't aware of it. I knew that the police had video operators, and
but who were the police video operators whose existence
I'm
you
relying
knew
on
about?
the POP's video operators.
And those video operators, you had downloaded material. You downloaded material from those video
I downloaded
operators.
their material in the days after the 16th. I recall because they brought me their memory cards, and when they gave it to me, there were a lot of different files, and I didn't really know which file the footage was in. I think we still had to download a certain program to try and open their footage. That's why I recall specifically the two public order policing video cameras that were brought to me, which in effect I think were the Lonmin cameras.
So,
to the SAPS.
are you saying that you had to download a program to show the Lonmin video, the POP's video footage of Warrant Officers Massinyan and Lovu?
From what I can recall, it was either that or we had to update some of the programs to a VCL player or something to that effect to be able to watch them.
Colonel Scott, I have to put to you that those files are readable on Windows Media Player, which comes standard issue with any version of Windows.
As I say, there was many files in there, and when I downloaded those, it was actually a little bit of a search to actually find the video footage. Because what I can recall is having to find a file that had the biggest amount of data in it to recognize it as being the video footage.
And how did you download it?
I've got a little card reader on my computer that you put the card into.
And you say you then had to search on that card to find the video footage?
From what I can recall, yes.
Colonel, those cards sit inside video cameras. Apart from the files of the camera manufacturer, the only files on those cards are video files.
It was either that or it's another camera that I had to, there were numerous files there, one had to go into to actually see what was being shown. Or it could have been, for that matter, we are talking some time ago, it could have been some of the Lonmin mine CCTV camera footage that was brought, or I'm not sure, but it was some file that had a whole lot of subdirectories that was difficult to open.
Okay, that's possibly the Lonmin CCTV footage, which is much more complicated to open. Colonel, let's go back to where this line of questioning started. For 10 days, you were the sole repository of the SAP's archive of photo and video material.
Yes.
The first 10 days after the event. You knew there was going to be a commission of inquiry.
I did, yes.
That had been publicly announced, and it must have been obvious to you that photo and video material taken by SAP's operatives would be of particular value to that commission of inquiry.
Makes sense, yes.
So you had an archive of materials that was going to be particularly valuable to this commission. And you're saying to us that after you surrendered responsibility for the archive at some stage, late August, early September, you may have deleted parts of that archive because you thought that it would have been kept elsewhere as well.
It's not intentional deleting. As I say, if I did, and I'm saying if I did, it would have been through the upgrading to gain back everything that was on the SABC master hard drive. There's no intentional deleting of video footage or photos or anything by myself.
No, Colonel, again, I want some precision here. I can understand a process where one copies back the archive on Brigadier Pretorius's hard drive onto your hard drive. And in the process, files with the same names get overwritten. That clearly is not intentional deletion. But if you consciously delete files on your hard drive before that copying process takes place, that seems to me to be intentional deletion. Is that what you say may have happened?
I wouldn't have deleted any files unless everything was already on the police master hard drive. But to my recollection, as I say, I don't recall deleting pertinently any files that had to do, that I alone would be sitting with. And I don't know how else to make this clear, but the only way that I would have, that something won't be on this hard drive is if I've transported the whole of the police hard drive back onto mine as an update and deleted what I had, knowing that what I'm getting back was the full package again, not having the full package.
Whether you got back exactly what you sent out would depend on whether there were any deletions done by, any deleting done by Colonel Fisser.
Yes, and because I know Colonel Fisser was also arranging the hard drive according to days to make it more or better to find evidence on certain days with regards to videos and etc. So there was a sorting of video and photograph footage into the relative days, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it was a shortcut for me to have that all done already to bring it back. I know that it wasn't done with all the files. I think some of the files were kept as whole as well. But that's why as well. It was comfortable for me to be able to take these things back that way as well, because it assisted me when it came down to having to, and at that stage we were still working on Exhibit L, to be able to go through these things, reference them better, see what was where.
Colonel, I don't recall the exact words of your answer to me, but the meaning that I understood you to convey was that you, if you deleted material from your hard drive, you did that in the understanding or in the expectation that what you were then going to copy back from the Brigadier Pretorius's hard drive would duplicate that material or replace it. Is that a correct understanding of what you were conveying?
It would replace it with a more up-to-date version, that whatever I didn't have would now be included in the full package as I would bring it over.
No. Again, I'm talking about individual files. There is no such thing as a more up-to-date version of an individual file. But what I understood you to be conveying was that if you deleted certain individual files from your hard drive, those individual files would then be replaced or recopied when you copied over the SABC hard drive that was now in the custody of Brigadier Pretorius and Colonel Fisser. You didn't anticipate that any of them would be lost forever.
No. With the integrity of Colonel Fisser as well, I must state, we've had no misleading issues, or I mean, we've tried to provide the videos, the footage, everything we've received. Those members of the SABC that even brought us footage to show us on cell phones, those were the guys we said, well, look, you have to give it to us. We're going to put it into the evidence bundle. in their confidence as well. We haven't tried to hide anything, and in so saying, when Colonel Visser tried to sort his videos, and I think I even had a hand in that at Roots itself, because we first started at Roots trying to depict the history and then go to the operation, and then found that it would be better to possibly show the audience something that happened in a sequential way, which was on days. And in doing that, we created folders per day, so that when we started referencing and looking at photos and videos, we knew where they were. So it may even be possible that certain photos taken on the same camera from another day ends up in a separate folder. But there was a sorting process done in that way. But to my knowledge, there was no videos that were deleted. There were videos and photos brought to us that were missing photos or videos. And that we later found out through yourselves that they were missing, because we didn't think to look at the sequential numbers of what was given to us. And when speaking to these members, they said, but they didn't mean anything, they were blurred, it was whatever the situation was. So we didn't see any ill intent from their side either in not providing those. And to my knowledge, most of those have been provided since. But as I say, there's been nothing that I have deleted personally, that I've done so with malicious intent to try and hide something, not in any way.
That's not exactly a complete answer to the question you asked. So I understand the question. You asked about the deletions that you did. And what I understood the question to be was, is it correct to say that you only deleted something if you thought that what you were deleting was on the police hard drive and that you'd get it back, as it were, later?
Yes.
That's the question. The answer to that is yes, is it?
And Chairperson, I must state, the hard drive's here, and I think we need to view it or have a look, because, as I say, I don't recall deleting anything. I'm saying that if I did.
It's a conditional answer or a hypothetical answer.
Yeah.
If I did, I would only have done it. I'm using the first person supposed to be you speaking.
Yes.
I would only have done it if I thought or was satisfied that what was being deleted on my computer was still in existence on the police hard drive, and that I would get it back later.
Yes, so yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, Colonel, if that was your intention, did you take any steps to compare the contents of the Brigadier Pretorius hard drive that you were going to copy onto your hard drive with the contents of your hard drive that you were going to delete to make space to accommodate that Brigadier Pretorius hard drive?
No, not that I can. But as I say, I think one must maybe just check what is on the hard drive before because I'm speaking about possibilities that may not even exist.
Okay, well, maybe we can return to this line of cross-examination when we have looked at that hard drive. But one last question, because I just want to clarify in my own mind what we need to be looking at. You spoke about Colonel Visser realizing that it would be more helpful to group materials according to date, for instance, on chronology. When you were the archive of the SABC video and photo store, how did you group your materials?
I was doing it like that already.
So you were already organizing materials by date?
From what I can recall, I think I would have started with just by name, whoever was giving me materials, and then realizing that there's going to be different days of material, starting to put it into days already as well.
So what Brigadier Pretorius, Colonel Visser would have been doing was really continuing a method that you had initially started.
Yes.
And your hard drive, in the sense of your external hard drive, would then have reflected the materials produced by SABC, members, and the materials obtained from Lonmin, because you spoke also about the difficulties of viewing the Lonmin CCTV footage. As they had been, or all of those materials that had been delivered to SAPS by the, say, 27th of August at the earliest. Is that correct?
The materials that I'd received, yes, I would have had in my possession till at least at Roots.
And they included the Lonmin CCTV footage that you had difficulty viewing?
I know that Lonmin CCTV footage was difficult to open, but I can definitely recall a file that somebody was giving me that was difficult to open. If it is that file, yes, then they did give me that already at Marikana.
Look, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but had you seen the Lonmin CCTV footage by Roots?
I saw it on the 17th, the Friday morning, when an IT expert from Lonmin showed the footage because it was relevant to General Mpembe's situation with regards to the 13th. And that same IT expert from Lonmin helped General Mpembe put together a compilation of that footage for the media briefing on the 17th. That's where I got to see it.
And did you copy that footage over onto your hard drive when it was the nodal point before Roots?
Yes.
And when I say that footage, maybe I should be more precise. Did you copy only the footage that the Lonmin expert had shown you, or did you receive all of the Lonmin CCTV footage that we now see on our SAPS hard drives?
No, I recall it. I think it was just from the 13th, if I recall.
And did you not ask for Lonmin CCTV footage of the 16th?
Well, it wasn't my place to specifically do that. As I say, I was there as the nodal point. I'm not sure what I was able to ask for from Lonmin's side. That morning of the 17th, and I think that's when I actually got the other footage as well, is when it was shown, and it was deemed necessary for the media briefing. But to ask entities outside of SAPS, I think I would have been outstepping my boundaries by doing so.
You knew the material existed, though?
Well, I saw the CCTV footage on the 16th in the jock, briefly when I was standing next to the radio center, because it was so poorly to be seen, with the sun shining and right into the lenses and so on. So I didn't take much notice of it.
But you did know of its existence?
And yes.
Did you know of the subpoena issued to Lonmin under Section 205?
I didn't know about that, no.
When was that first brought to your attention?
This is when Colonel Visser showed me the Lonmin footage of the 12th, when the miners had the shotguns. That's the first time that he made me aware that had come through in Section 205, that he had obtained that footage.
And when did that take place?
That was probably late October that he showed me that. It was in the Rustenburg Conference Center.
So that was long after Roots. It was when the commission was already running. All right, Colonel. We'll return to this issue when we've looked at the hard drive and seen what it shows. But for now, if I can go back to that initial roadmap that I gave you, and you'll recall that the second topic that I was going to address with you before that diversion was the sources of videos in Exhibit L. And can you go to the spreadsheet that you furnished to the evidence leaders, which will be Exhibit J63, and it is
J63.
And that is at pages 1 to 8 of file 3.1.
1 to 8.
Of file 3.1.
1 2 TO8.
1 TO8.
File
3.1.
3.1. And you describe it as a spreadsheet of?
It is a spreadsheet that I understand Colonel Scott to have produced in response to a request from the evidence leaders for a list of the sources of the video and photographic files in Exhibit L. And Colonel, I've just described that spreadsheet in terms which really should come from you rather than from me, but can you confirm that this is a spreadsheet that you prepared in response to a request from the evidence leaders that SAPS provide us with details of the source files for each of the photographic and video slides in Exhibit L?
I confirm it's a spreadsheet I made, yes.
So it provides extra material in relation to the source of the slides in Exhibit L, which supplements what appears in paragraphs 8 and following of Colonel Fisser's affidavit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Colonel
In fact,
Fisser's affidavit, I'm not sure it's got an exhibit yet, but yes, it has. It's J 3.1.
Chronologically, as I understand it, it predates Colonel Fisser's affidavit, but as an exhibit, it obviously enters the commission after Colonel Fisser's affidavit.
And it supplements that material.
It does. Colonel, can you briefly guide the commissioners through the spreadsheet? The first column is self-explanatory. It's the number of the slide in Exhibit L. The second column provides a brief description of what one sees on the video or the photograph. Sorry, Colonel, I see you nodding your head. Can you, for the record, can you just say yes if you agree?
Yes,
with yes. Possibly you can explain what you had in mind with the third column, which you call type.
With type, I was referring to, is it a photograph that you find in Exhibit L? Is it a video? What you see with the first row, which is slide number 9, it shows an interview which was obtained through the open source media. So it would have come from the internet.
Then the third column describes the origin of the file, from whom SAPS received that file, or not necessarily from whom SAPS received the file. Maybe you can describe what the
origin is speaking to where on the SAPS master hard drive that origin is found. So you would find 702 Eyewitness News. There was, I think it's in the open source media. Or if I mentioned it like that, I may not have specifically been able to find it, but where you do see the letter F, that's simply standing for the port on the computer to which the hard drive was plugged into. Then you see Marikana master, that's the SAPS master hard drive, photos 12, etc. And the 15, row number 2, 15, Striker March Friday video. It's a compilation of videos again. And you see the reference which speaks to the actual name of the file that was used in the video footage.
If I can just take you back to origin. If, for instance, we go to item 3, that will give you the directory on the police master hard drive that the file in the column's reference, that's where that file resides, on the police master.
Yes.
Now, as I look at it now, I suddenly realize that there is a slight omission that I would have wanted to have addressed in the spreadsheet. Because on its face, the spreadsheet doesn't tell us whether the file that we see is a file that was taken by a SAPS member or possibly a Lonmin person whom we can identify, or that was pulled off the internet from open source media. I wonder if I can ask you, it shouldn't be a difficult exercise, you and I can do that very quickly. If we can overnight prepare a further folder which identifies which really just has two categories, or three: SAPS, Lonmin, open source media. So the commissioners know in relation to a particular file whether it's a file the origin of which we can identify precisely through SAPS or Lonmin, or whether it's a file that has been pulled off the internet.
You don't reply, but I take it the answer is yes.
Yeah, well, I presume there's no option in it, Commissioner, so...
No, well, you
we
can't
have
do
to
it,
do
you can
that.
say you can't do it, but I would have thought it's possible, so I would be surprised if you said no. So
Yeah.
can I put the word yes into your mouth and can we carry on?
Yes.
Thank you, Colonel. Colonel, if we can then go to the next spreadsheet, which is a spreadsheet that the evidence leaders amended, or a version of your spreadsheet that the evidence leaders amended. That is Exhibit J 64, and that starts at page 9 of the same file that the commissioners have. Colonel, what the evidence leaders did in respect of this file, and we did it only in relation to the 16th, because it was the 16th with which we were particularly concerned, is we added two columns, the last two columns on the right-hand side, which say time on camera and ETV time. And for the purposes of explaining the ETV time column, I should ask you also to look at that table of time differences that the evidence leaders prepared, which is J 37, and is the first 2 pages of file 1 for the commissioners. And maybe if I can start with that table, which still has the heading that was on that PowerPoint presentation that we presented. This table reflects the evidence leaders' reconciliation of 20 different sources of film and video footage of the 16th. And it has been accepted by the parties. And if you look at the column on screen, the last row in that table, which really straddles 2 slides. Can we just quickly flip the second slide up and then go back to the first slide? So what this should look like is pages 1 and 2 should sit next to each other on the left and right-hand side of the page, but we couldn't fit them all onto one page. But the last row reflects what we have called ETV time, which is the time on the live ETV clock that was displayed by ETV News as they were filming on the day. And each entry on that table tells you, if one runs along the ETV line, how far ahead or behind of ETV that particular camera was. So if we, I'm just trying to remember, entries in red, if I recall correctly, are entries that were behind. So if we go down the first column, Nell video is 3 hours and 59 minutes behind. Oh. If one goes down the Lonmin chopper column, the Lonmin chopper, which starts at 0, that Lonmin chopper video, is 15 hours and 57 minutes and 30 seconds behind ETV time. So 0, 0, 0 on the Lonmin chopper is actually 15:57:30 in ETV time. Colonel Rylands in the second column is actually 24 seconds behind ETV time. So time on Colonel Rylands' cell phone would translate to a time that is 24 seconds behind ETV. And entries that are not in red are entries that are ahead of. So for Mark, Pentax is 1 minute and 42 seconds ahead of ETV time. What the evidence leaders have done in relation to your spreadsheet entries for the 16th is where those entries relate to files of SAPS or Lonmin footage or photographs in respect of which we have camera times. They have entered on the first column the camera time and the second column the conversion of that camera time into ETV time. So that in respect of each entry on your spreadsheet in the final column we can have an ETV time for that slide. Now, we made a copy of this spreadsheet available to you, I would imagine 6 weeks ago. We asked you to work through it and see if you have any difficulties with the entries that we have made on this. And can I ask you, do you have any difficulties, or do you accept that the camera times that we have put in column F are the correct camera times and the conversions to ETV time in column G are correct?
I accept that they are.
Thank you, Colonel. That concludes the second topic that I'm dealing with in videos, and it may be
for us to take the adjournment at this stage.
It would be a convenient time, Mr. Chairperson.
Adjournment till 1:45.